Ratnakarasanti on Prakasa asterisk. Kei Kataoka. Summary. In his Prajnaparamita PPU, Ratnakarasanti claims that all dharmas are mere cognition in nature, Vijnantrasvav. This view is based on his theory of illumination, Prakasa, shining forth. He regards the illumination/appearance of all dharmas as possible only when illumination is accepted as their nature, prakandharm, tmabta praka. Only something luminous in nature can shine forth. An object, if it did not have the nature of being luminous, could not shine forth. Essay said Adadropona tarhai prakase. Thus, for him, luminous dharmas, which have the very nature of cognition, are precisely cognition in nature. Whereas Ratnakarasanti regards illumination as cognition in nature, Bhamsakas regard it as an additional property produced in a cognized object, Vyaja Grahizya Dharma, as a result of a cognizing action, Jnanakarya, Nayakas, etc., regarded as nothing more than the occurrence of cognition, Nasyatpati. They need no separate category called illumination. When a cognition of blue arises, blue appears to the mind. Another theorist, whom Ratnakarasanti designates merely as apara, another, claims that a non-luminous object is illuminated by a luminous cognition, artha punar adadropo nanavasat prakase. In other words, the illumination of objects is possible not because illumination is the nature of objects, but because they are connected with the illumination of cognition, just as a pot is illuminated by the light of a lamp. Ratnakarasanti refutes these three heretic views one by one. The present paper aims at clarifying Ratnakarasanti's arguments against these views. Structure of the text. In his Prajnaparamita Ratnakarasanti systematically discusses prajna by dividing it into three phases, Srutamai prajna, Sintamai prajna, and Bhavanamai prajna. The first two phases, i.e., Srutamai prajna and Sintamai prajna, are further divided into two subcategories according to their objects, Yavad Pavakatayam and Yathavad Pavakatayam for each. He explains the prajnas altogether in 5 sections as follows. 1. Yavad Pavakatayam. 1-1. Srutamai prajna. 1-2. Sintamai prajna. 2. Yathavad Pavakatayam. 2-1. Srutamai prajna. 2-2. Sintamai prajna. 3. Bhavanamai prajna. In the section of Yathvad Vikati Sintamai prajna, 2-2 above, Ratnakarasanti claims that all dharmas are devoid of svabhava, sarvadharma nisvab, inasmuch as they lack graya and grahaka, i.e., inasmuch as they are devoid of an object-subject division, because they are mere cognition in nature, vijnantrasvav. In order to defend this theory of vijnanamatra, he further claims, on the basis of direct experience, that all dharmas that shine forth/appear have illumination, prakasa, as their own nature, tmabta praka. As he explains, illumination, prakasa, the property of being luminous, prakasamanada, showing, prakyana, appearing, prativasa, are synonyms. And this illumination is a form/appearance, rupa, that is sentient, aja, not insentient, perceptible, aparoka, and clearly manifest, parisphua. Without illumination, nothing can appear, and therefore nothing can be established. On the other hand, if one accepts illumination, i.e., the clear appearance of dharmas, one is led to the conclusion that all dharmas are cognition in nature because illumination is precisely cognition. Thus, having clarified the Yogacaras' view of self-luminosity or the Sakara theory, that, in fact, is shared by the Sautrantikas up to this point, Ratnakarasanti then refutes Brahmanical schools that hold the Nirakara theory, i.e., Msak, Natikdaya, and someone else whom he simply refers to as Apara. In the following I explain his refutation of these three views of heretics not in due order, BCD, but in reverse order, DCB, because the last view is easier than the first for us. Synopsis of the entire PPU. 1. Magalam. 2. Trivid Praj, Rudasinthanmaya. 3. Srutamai Prajna, 1. 4. Sinamai Prajna, 2. 5. Dharma Devi with Macron Bhy with Macron Takrabi J. 5.1. Yavad Bhavakataya Yathavad Bhavikataya Ca. 5.2. Evad Vikati Srudamai Prajna, 1 to 1. 5.3. Evad Vikati Sintame Prajna, 1 to 2. 5.4. Yathvad Vikati Srudamai Prajna, 2 to 1. 5.5. Yathvad Vikati Sintame Prajna, 2 to 2. 5.5.1. Vijnanamatras Sarvadharm Nisvabvitvam. 5.5.2. Sarvadharm Prakasatmata, Jnanasakarat Vasanam, A. 5.5.2.1. Nsakamatadam, B. 5.5.2.2. Nadik Dimitatum, C. 5.5.2.3. Aparamatadam, D. 5.5.3. Satranikamatadam, Bhayagraya Nasti, E. 5.5.4. Yat Prakasate Tad Alakam Eva Navastu. 5.5.4.1. Vavikamatadam, Adad Tutapradieta F. 5.5.4.2. Alaka Prakasopadanam. 5.5.4.3. Skrijnavdimidanursa, G. 5.5.5. Spamadasadanam. 6. Bhavanamai Prajna, 3. 2. Other theories of Prakasa. 1. The view of Apra, D, a non-luminous object, is illuminated by a luminous cognition, asterisk aprakasarupo, the prakasara pajnavasat prakasate. Cognition spontaneously shines forth because it has illumination as its own nature. An object, on the other hand, which does not have illumination as its own nature, is illuminated by cognition. In other words, an object is illuminated, but does not spontaneously illuminate itself. Prakasate nasiye prakasate. This is the view ascribed by Ratnakarasanti to Apra. Most probably, we can identify this Apra as a Prabhakra. The most serious problem with this view, according to Ratnakarasanti, is that an object, if it were not luminous in nature, could not shine forth. Asterisk aprakasarupo prakasate. In response to this, the opponent claims that an object, although itself non-luminous, can be illuminated due to some relationship, sabandha, with an illuminating cognition. Ratnakarasanti then questions this relationship and asks, by means of what kind of relationship is the object made known by a cognition? Ratnakarasanti considers 3 theoretical possibilities and refutes each of them. 1.1. Because of being bound to the same causal aggregate, a Kasamagra Pradabandhat. The opponent claims that it is possible that an object is illuminated by a cognition because the object in question is bound to the same causal aggregate. In other words, cognition targets a particular object because the object in question is included in the same causal aggregate. However, Ratnakarasanti points out the faculty of sight, which is regarded as imperceptible, is also included in the same causal aggregate and therefore would be cognized by a visual cognition, which is absurd. 1.2. Because it is an object via. The opponent rebuts this as follows. It is true that both the color and the faculty of sight are included in the same causal aggregate. But a color is an object via, whereas the faculty of sight is not. Thus, the objectness, vayat, of a color is the relationship that specifies the target of cognition. However, Ratnakarasanti points out, this objectness presupposes the existence of illumination. In other words, a color becomes an object because it has illumination. Without illumination, a color cannot be an object. Ratnakarasanti states, even a color cannot be an object without illumination. 1.3. Because of the connection with the illumination of cognition, Prakasa argt. The opponent further rebuts this as follows. It is true that without illumination a color is not an object, and therefore is not illuminated by cognition. But once it has a connection, sasarga, with the illumination of cognition, i.e., a physical connection, either sayoga, samavaya, or a combination of these, it is cognized. In other words, a non-luminous object is illuminated due to the connection with the illumination of cognition, just as a pot is illuminated due to the connection with the light of a lamp. Ratnakarasanti points out that this view does not work either, because in the case of fruit or a flower, for example, the illumination of cognition is connected not only with its color, but also with its smell and touch. Thus, it would undesirably follow that smell and touch are also made known by the faculty of sight because a connection exists similarly with them. Ratnakarasanti concludes, Therefore, all objects, such as blue, which one is directly aware of, are cognitions only, and not something external to cognition, i.e., something grasped by it. 2. The view of Nayagdaya, see illumination, is nothing but the occurrence of a cognition, asterisk Nasyat Pati Praka. For Nayakas, etc., there is no separate thing called Prakasa, a property that one may attribute to cognition, Nanasya Dharma, or to its object, Nyasya Dharma. Rather, it is a mere occurrence of cognition, Nasyat Pati. Remember that cognition is a specific quality of souls, Tmevyagwa, for Nayakas, etc. People have an illumination of blue when a cognition of blue occurs. In other words, what theorists call an illumination of blue is merely an occurrence of a cognition of blue. Similarly, an illumination of cognition 1 exists when people have cognition 2 of cognition 1. In other words, a subsequent cognition 2 called anubhayavasaya is required to grasp a previous cognition 1. Cognition's self-awareness, spasavadana, is impossible. Thus, there is nothing independent called prakasa that is to be attributed to cognition, jnana, or to an object, naya. Ratnakarasanti refutes this view in the following manner. He says, even Brahma cannot deny the evident fact that presently existent objects have illumination as their own nature. If they have no illumination, even Indra cannot be aware of them. Even if a cognition occurred, its objects such as blue would remain unmanifest inasmuch as they are imperceptible without illumination. As shown above, for Nayakas, etc., however, the illumination of an object is merely a cognition of an object and nothing more than that. Therefore, it is not the case that an object has illumination as its own nature or property. In response to this, Ratnakarasanti points out the following difficulty. How can cognition, which is separate from an object, be a light for an object which itself is not luminous? Nayakas, etc., might object that a cognition becomes a light for an object because it cuts out, parakeeted, the object, i.e., it is aware of the object. This solution, however, does not work because this paraketa, cutting out, clipping, focusing, awareness, presupposes illumination. Without the illumination of an object cannot be focused on. Thus, one has to accept that an object has illumination as its property. And once this model, which is equal to the Ba view, is accepted, one can easily shift to the Buddhist view according to which objects such as blue are nothing but cognitions. In other words, one can move to the view that illumination is the very nature of cognition and not a property of external objects. 3. The view of Mzak, illumination or cognizedness, is a result of a cognizing action, i.e., a property produced in an object, B. For Ratnakarasanti, illumination is the very nature of all dharmas, whereas for Bhamsakas it is a produced property of a cognized object, Nayadharma. Ratnakarasanti merely labels these opponents as Mzak. According to these Mzakas, illumination, prakasa, or cognizedness, natada, a term which Ratnakarasanti does not mention here, is not cognition in nature, jnanatma, but a property of a grasped object, vyaja grahizya dharma, a property which is newly produced by a cognizing action, jnanakarya. In other words, when a soul cognizes blue, this action brings about a result, i.e., the illumination or cognizedness of blue. Thus, blue comes to have the property called illumination, i.e., cognizedness, as a result of a soul's action of cognizing. To summarize, the cognizing action, which itself is imperceptible, causes illumination, i.e., cognizedness, in an object. Cognizedness is perceptible, on the basis of which a cognizer postulates the existence of the imperceptible cognizing action. In this way, for Bhamsakas, an illumination is not a sentient cognition in nature, but rather a property of an insentient object, and it is grasped by a soul. 3.1. Ratnakarasanti refutes this view first by using the scheme of kriya and karaka, i.e., action and its accomplishing factors. He looks in particular at the instrumental cause, kara, of an instance of awareness. What is the most effective cause of an instance of awareness? Only an object's condition of having the nature of being luminous, prakasatmata, can be the most effective cause. It functions as the particularity, pratinyatata, of an object by which a particular object such as blue, and not other objects such as yellow, is established as being experienced. Without this nature, i.e., particularity, an object cannot be experienced even in the presence of thousands of other factors, karaka. Therefore, blue's nature of being luminous, prakasatmata, alone is the final, antya, and distinguishing, badaka, factor, i.e., the most effective cause, sadhakatama, of an instance of awareness, and thereby can be regarded as the instrumental cause of an instance of awareness, savado kara karakam. Thus, one can designate this nature of being luminous, prakasatmata, as the cognizing instrument, jnana, i.e., jnakara, because an object is cognized by means of it. In other words, prakasatmata, having illumination as its own nature, alone can function as the means of valid cognition, prama, by means of which a particular object is cognized. 3.2. Alternatively, one can say that being luminous in nature, prakasatmata, itself is awareness, because blue, which is a cognition in nature, is cognized when blue shines forth. In other words, if one does not distinguish between prama and prama, one can regard prakasatmata as equal to awareness, because when blue appears, what is happening there can be regarded as an event in which cognition is cognized, jnana vijnana. In other words, awareness of blue, in which blue shines forth, is self-awareness of cognition. 3.3. In both cases, regardless of whether or not one distinguishes between prama and prama, all dharmas, such as colors and so on, are precisely cognitions in nature, i.e., they have illumination as their own nature. Because without prakasatmata there would be no way to establish the existence of cognition, and because when all factors are present only that alone is seen as occurrent. In other words, prakasatmata alone is the epistemological evidence of cognition, and at the same time it is the ontological basis for it. 3. Ratnakarasanti's strategy. 1. Narrower context. As the sequence of his discussion, BCD, shows, Ratnakarasanti first refutes the view of Msaka's B, that illumination is a property produced in a cognized object, i.e., the view that blue shines forth because it has illumination as its property as a result of a cognizing action. Refuting this view, he establishes his own view, A, that illumination is not a produced property of cognition, jnanakarya, but rather cognition in nature, jnanatma, i.e., identical with cognition. His main argument is prakasatmata, i.e., blue's having illumination as its nature, which functions as the most efficient cause for the existence of the cognition of blue. In this way, in the first discussion he shifts from the view of property, B, to his own view of identity, i.e., the view that blue is a cognition in nature, A. The second view, i.e., the view of Nayakas, etc., C, is worse than the with Macron view for Ratnakarasanti, because from the beginning they do not accept illumination as a separate category. For them, blue appears means a cognition of blue arises, and nothing more than that. In other words, illumination is nothing more than the arising of a cognition, nasyat pati, for Nayakas. So, the first thing Ratnakarasanti has to do is convince the Nayakas to accept illumination. Ratnakarasanti argues first that illumination must be accepted as a property of an object, Nayadharma. In other words, he tries to persuade the Nayakas, C, to adopt the with Macron position, B. He explicitly mentions this move as follows: Siddhas ea Nayadharm, earth ea Purvabat, once the thing in question, i.e., illumination, is established as a property of an object of cognition, the rest will be the same as before, i.e., the previous argument against the Msakas will stand. The last opponent is akin to Buddhists in that he accepts cognition as self-luminous. This view is more or less an ordinary view that we can accept as common sense, i.e., the view that an object, although itself non-luminous, is illuminated by the light of cognition. This view is further divided into three subclasses, i.e., the theories of ekasamagri, Vayatva, and Sasarga, among which the third view seems to be the most representative one. According to this view, which can be named connection theory, an object is illuminated due to the connection with the illumination of cognition, Prakasa art. Against this view, Ratnakarasanti argues that an object must still be accepted as luminous in nature. The key phrase is *aprakasarupo na prakasate, nothing non-luminous in nature shines forth. In other words, he claims that what the opponent believes to be an insentient object, Naya, is in fact a cognition in nature inasmuch as it must have illumination as its nature, Prakasarupa. 2. Wider context. 2.1. Refutation of Nirakuravada. In these sections, Ratnakarasanti refutes Brahmanical Nirakuravadins, i.e., Vamsakas, V, Nayakas, etc., C, and Apara, i.e., Prabhakras, D, and thus establishes the Sakara view that cognition has images, akara, in it. Here he focuses on the issue of whether blue, etc., are internal or external, as he states in his concluding remark in D. 2.2. Refutation of the Sautrantikas E. The Sakara view is shared by both Sautrantikas and Yogacaras. Therefore, in the immediately following section, E. Ratnakarasanti commences to refute the Sautrantika view that an external object is grasped via its reflection, Arthapradibimba. Here Ratnakarasanti focuses on negating the existence of an external object that is to be grasped so that he can establish that all dharmas are consciousness only, Vijnaptimatra, inasmuch as they are devoid of the Grahya-Grahaka division. 2.3. Refutation of the reality of blue, etc. 2.3.1. Refutation of the Vaipikas F. Immediately after this he starts refuting the Abhidharmic view of the 18 datas, together with the 12 ayatanas and the 5 skandhas, and he rejects the view that rupa, color/form, etc., are real entities, dravisat. By resorting in particular to the Yogacaras' well-known argument of neither one nor many that shows the impossibility of atoms. For Ratnakarasanti, they are simply false, alika, and not real entities, na vaster. This view can probably be ascribed to the Vaipikas, although Ratnakarasanti does not mention their name. 2.3.2. Justification of his own view of Alaka Prakasa. If skandhas, etc., do not exist as Ratnakarasanti claims, then how is their appearance, taprativasa, possible? Ratnakarasanti justifies his own view of Alaka Prakasa, i.e., the illumination of a false image, by resorting to the idea that the mind, siddha, is afflicted by residual impressions, vasanopahada. He also applies the logic of neither one nor many to the internal images of a cognition and by implication rejects the view of *Satyakaravada, i.e., the view that internal images are real. 2.3.3. Refutation of *Satyakaravada, G. The previous section is immediately followed by Ratnakarasanti's refutation of *Satyakaravadins, whom he calls Sakarajnavadins. Thus, we can better understand Ratnakarasanti's intention behind placing the Vaipikas F after the Sautrantikas E. When introducing the Vaipika view, he focuses on the reality of blue. First, he refutes its reality as claimed in the external theory of the Vaipikas, and then he refutes its reality as claimed in the internal theory of *Satyakaravadins. 3. Context recapitulated. The synopsis of the relevant portions can be recapitulated as follows. 5.5.1. Sarvadharm Nisvabhitvam. 5.5.2. Sarvadharm Prakasatmata, Sarvananam Sakram. 1. Establishment of *Sakravada A. 2. Refutation of *Nirakuravadas, BCD. 5.5.3. Refutation of the Sautrantika view, E. Grahio, Rtho Nasti Eva. 5.5.4. Refutation of the reality of blue, etc., either external or internal. 1. Refutation of the Vaipika view of real datas, etc., F. 2. Justification of his own view that blue, etc., though false, appear. 3. Refutation of *Satyakaravada, G. Ratnakarasanti's ultimate goal is to establish his own view of Alaka Prakasa equals Alakasia Praka. To this end, he takes the following steps. He first proves that what shines forth, Prakasamana, is an internal image, Akara, and not an external object, 5.5.2. Then he negates the existence of an external object that is to be grasped, 5.5.3. Finally, he proves that what shines forth is unreal and false by refuting other views that hold that what shines forth is real, 5.5.4. 5.5.2. Whether cognition is Nirakara or Sakara. 5.5.3. Whether or not an external object that is to be grasped exists. 5.5.4. Whether Prakasamana, either external or internal, is Satya or Alika. 4. Some remarks. 1. The three heretic views can be attributed to Vaz, the, Nayakas, etc., C, and probably Prabhakras, D, respectively. V regards illumination as the property of a cognized object, whereas D regards it as residing in cognition. C does not accept it as a separate category from the beginning. 2. Ratnakarasanti first criticizes the three non-Buddhist views, B, C, D, and then the Sautrantika view, E. This order suggests that in BCD, he refutes *Nirakaravadas in order to establish *Sakravada, which is common to the Yagakaras and the Sautrantikas, together with certain Madhyamikas. 3. Ratnakarasanti's criticism of the Vaipika view, F, is placed after that of the Sautrantika view, E, in order to establish his own view of illumination of a false thing, Alakasia Praka, in opposition to illumination of a real entity, the latter of which is either external, according to the Vaipikas, or internal, according to the *Satyakaravadins, G. Biblia